New to the CMS is the ability to upload a podcast to one of your pages. If you take a look at the Masters of Science in Biology page, you can see right here there's a section that says listen to the podcast. And so people can come here and they can click on the play button.
Thank you for taking the time to learn more.
And they can listen to the podcast that you've uploaded. So now let me show you how to upload this and how to get this onto your CMS. So this is a page that I'm editing, and if you look over here on the right hand side, you will now see on the very bottom here we have a link for podcast. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to drag it to where I want it to go. So now you can see that podcast chunk is now on our page. So what I now will want to do is if I double click on this, I then will give this a title. So in this example, I'm going to use a podcast that our Career Center has started called Work Like a Laker. Then here's the podcast URL. A few things that you'll want to know about this is if I click on this button here that says File Manager, I could upload the file to the CMS. However, there is a 10 megabyte limit for that particular file. So if I choose a file and I go to this MP3 that we have of that podcast, I can see that this particular podcast is 43 megabytes. So that's way too large for this instance. So what I'm going to do is I know that the Career Center has the podcast hosted on a third-party site. In this instance, it's audioboom.com. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the specific URL for the podcast that I want to link. So for this one. So I know that the link to this podcast is this hyperlink up here at the very top. So what I can do is I can highlight that, I can copy it, and then I could put that URL in this box right here. Now another thing you have to do for accessibility reasons is you also have to provide a transcript of that podcast. So if I click on File Manager and I go to Upload and then I say Choose File, I have a text file right here that is the transcript of that podcast. So I'm going to say Open, and you can see that it has been successfully uploaded, and I'm going to say Upload. So in order to have a podcast on your site, you must also provide a transcript. So now that I have the URL for that particular podcast and I have the transcript uploaded, I'm going to say Save Changes. So now let's take a look at what we have done and take a look at our draft. So now that I have clicked Save as Draft, I'm now going to click on Preview Draft, and then that will give us a preview as to what the page looks like. So here is our page right here, and you can see if I click on this button here, the podcast begins to play, and then if I click on this button here, it downloads the transcript. So that does it. So just as a reminder, if you have to link your podcast to a third-party website such as Audioboom, you will want to make sure that you get the file that has .mp3 at the end of it. If you don't get that, then the podcast will have no way to play. So just make sure that when you link to the podcast, you want to make sure you include the .mp3 file at the end.